Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is the second day of December. And I appreciate all of you being here with me. Went kind of long yesterday. I'm going to try to tighten it up because today is a Tuesday, which means that my friend, Steve Friend, is running the American Radicals podcast directly after our show. And he's doing that because he doesn't work for the FBI yet. Because even though he was an FBI whistleblower who was reinstated and was given a 30-day agreement signed by the Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America, and he should be back to work with back pay and full reinstatement, he's not. Because the people who run the FBI are a problem. Our government continues to do what's in the best interest of our government. And oftentimes we are the ones who are left in the lurch. I've got a couple of bizarre stories. Let me give you a survey of what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about coffee tariffs. And why is that? This morning, my wife was busy making breakfast for our kids and not making coffee first thing. And we used to have a sign in our kitchen and it said ... but first, coffee. And I thought we still had that sign because I thought that was the rule of the house. But apparently, it is not the rule of our house. The rule is, but first we feed the children. So my coffee was secondary. And there are coffee tariffs that are being lifted, and it has some broad effect on many of our lives and many of the ways that we go about business, whether you buy your coffee out in the world or whether you make it at your house. Coffee is an important part of most American households these days. I don't know this part of everybody's. It didn't used to be a part of mine, by the way. That's my wife's fault. She's Italian and she brought that into my life. Anyway, okay, so we're going to talk about that. But first, coffee. We're going to talk about MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again agenda. And I think that there are two things that are really bizarre, and I found these out. I did not know that there are still physician groups that are actively and aggressively pushing for COVID vaccine shots for children as young as 6 months old. That's wild to me. And additionally, the propaganda that there is no differential between foods treated with pesticides and not continues. And there was kind of a victory in the legislative / regulatory judicial end of that. And so I got a video that was interesting to me in so much as one of my, we'll call her nemesises. She seems to think so. This woman who is at the root of the feud between the Dan Bongino camp and the Kyle Seraphin camp. And I also think that is relevant now in this discussion about Miranda Devine, which came out yesterday. All of these things kind of come together. And one of the people who used to push the agenda of pro-GMO, pro-Monsanto, pro-glyphosate treated foods and so on had a major loss. And I actually wanted to do another little dive into sort of the propaganda industry that sits behind these major agricultural companies that are the opposite of MAHA. So we're going to do a little piece on that. And it seems kind of like a non sequitur. Another Trump administration loss when it comes to procedural errors. I think I made the comment to you guys earlier on that the government of the United States is run through administrative ruling and administrative laws, and the Trump administration is about 25% behind the Biden administration in actually enacting policies that will go in to run the federal government. And one of the ways that we keep seeing this administration fail, and it seems like it's deliberate, it doesn't need to happen this way, but it does, is that they keep failing in procedural appointments. And that means that they're putting people in as interim and acting in various roles through DOJ and also an FBI, and they're not doing it right. And by doing that, they're really screwing up their ability to be effective and successful. So Alina Habba has been ruled as disqualified from serving as New Jersey's prosecutor. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about a little bit more about the Afghan vetting situation and others who defended it and why that continues to be a real problem, sort of the incompatibility that I see with Afghan refugees coming in, but Islam more broadly in the American culture as a Christian culture. And so we've got a little video clip from Andrew Wilson I want to play you. And then this big discussion that continues to go on. The left is wanting to ignore the fact that an Afghan guy who worked for the CIA came into this country and killed a National Guardsman and has critically wounded the National Guard soldier who was wounded, seems to be heading towards recovery. But in order to distract from that, we're seeing Democrats pull this kind of rabbit out of a hat. And the rabbit is, how dare you drone strike potential narco trafficking boats coming out of Venezuela? And so the legislative branch of the government and the Democrats that are populating it, they keep mouthing out this talking point. So I've got some Chuck Schumer and some Mark Kelly who's trying to actually say what is that unlawful order that they filmed that video propaganda about before. So that's where we're going to go with today's show. And then, of course, we're going to end with the very alliterative title, which I will read to you. Drunk Dial, Deep State FBI Deputy Director drops derogatory denomination on Miranda Devine. Because it does appear that this administration continues to do like governed by social media and or governed by media hit, if possible. And so the way that they are perceived by the people who follow them on social media is the most important thing that at least the action arm of our government is interested in. You'll notice that the people who are most effective are not out there blitzing social media with Fox News clips and a bunch of sit-down interviews. They're just trying to do the damn job, because being in government is not fun. It's the reason why I wouldn't want to do it again. It is a full-time gig. You can't be a social media influencer / podcast aficionado / also highly effective destroyer of deep state practices. You can't do them both. You have to pick one. And apparently, at least the most dangerous and now the most ineffective version of our governmental leadership has decided that they really just want to do the thing that they used to do, which is talk and not do. That seems problematic. So I've got some stuff on that. All right. Before we get into the weeds on all these things, let's talk about my friends over at Cove Pure. Folks, how often do you think about your drinking water? If you live in a place like Texas, especially north central Texas, like I do, you might think about it more frequently because the water smells awful. It's a city water coming out of our aquifer with a high degree of sulfur that actually it offends the nose. I'm like, oh, did something rot? No, it's just the way the water goes. And I don't want to drink that. And of course, there's other things that can be in there as well. If you guys are interested in having healthy, safe drinking water, you can check out my friends at covepure.com/KYLE. The website is covepure.com/Kyle. Right now, you're going to get a $250 Christmas discount off. If you guys are interested in buying it at this exact time, you'll get the best deal on there. And what does it do? It has a lab certified removal process. It's very easy to set up and it takes out 99.9% of the contaminants from your water. You actually get a real-time readout of what sort of dissolved solvents are actually in your water that it's pulling out. It's going to get rid of things like PFAs and pharmaceuticals and fluoride and lead and arsenic and other things that you do not necessarily want in there. It also gives you like the convenience of a really good looking little device. So you can choose the temperature of your water. You can choose hot, cold, or warm. You can make an instant cup of tea like I did for my wife the other day. You run up, you could pick the presets. You can actually set custom presets if you have weird shaped water bottles like my kids do. It makes the water taste good. There's no aftertaste. It's just clean and pure. There's no installation. You don't have to do any plumbing. It's sleek and it sits on your countertop. And again, it's a real easy thing that we do to make sure that our kids are getting enough water. They can do it upstairs on the little, it's sitting right there on the bathroom countertop because it doesn't require anything except a plug outlet. So check out covepure.com/KYLE. Save yourself $250 on a really great unit that not just filters and filters better than just some of these little drip ones, but actually gives you a lot of options. Again, the hot cold button is pretty neat, being able to make instant tea. I've got a little thing for instant coffee right next to it as well. So we're going to start with coffee, and that's where we're going right now. Let's get into today's program. Make sure you're supporting our sponsors and liking the videos. Here we go. I told you, but first coffee, it was a little sign. It's one of those things you find at like Ross or Marshall's or whatever the heck it is, where you go and you find like the little cutesy made in Chinese, like wall decorations. And you're like, oh yeah, that's what my life is all about. Let's do the coffee story. This is coming from CBS News, and I'm going to drink a little coffee because looking at it, even the sort of perceived aroma on the screen is enough to make me want to drink coffee. Maybe that's why it's such a big deal. Coffee tariffs have been lifted, but some Portland cafes and roasters are still waiting for relief. As much as I love Portland, which is not at all, I actually think this is probably a big problem for more people than not. I told you guys that we likely lost a sponsor that was unable to justify sort of the overhead, the increase in cost. Everybody was doing this balancing act with the tariffs that came in. The balancing act was, are we able to absorb the cost of the tariff without changing our pricing so we don't interrupt our flow of customers because they don't necessarily see it? Or are we going to have to bump up our costs and then finding out that some people can actually get priced out of the market when they have a tariff punched on top? One of America's coffee capitals is Portland, Oregon. Maybe because it's chilly there and a nice warm cup of joe is the way to go. They have grounds for worrying. Coffee prices have soared to historic highs. We have bags of coffee on our menu that are $28.50. Well, that really depends on how big the bag is, doesn't it? But she doesn't say that. That's a lot of money for a bag of coffee, says a woman named Laila Gahambriari. She is the owner of the Gilder Coffee Company that sells specialty coffees. You're already dealing with a niche group of people, I imagine. She and her brothers practically grew up inside of an espresso machine. That is not a good place to grow up, it would turn out. I feel like there's a lot of pressure and heat involved inside of an espresso machine. Her father owned a coffee shop. She became the U.S. barista champion in 2014, and now she's a small business owner. This part is a little bit relevant, and it's impacting her business, even though coffee products were granted an exemption last month. So the issue is that the Trump administration's kind of said like, well, we wanted to pump up the cost of things that are being made overseas, but I remember this carve out, and apparently they just didn't do it. They didn't do it right away. The carve out was, we're not going to place taxes on things that we do not make in this country. Because why would you go and put up a barrier to something that we want to come in as quickly and as cheaply and as freely as possible? And you don't. That's what protective tariffs do. Tariffs are meant to protect homegrown industry. And there's not enough coffee. I think like over 90% of the coffee beans that are consumed in the United States are not actually grown in the United States. So if that's the case, then you need to make sure that you do not interrupt your supply coming from overseas. But unfortunately, we did have it interrupted. Coffee prices were already high due to supply and demand pressures for premium beans, along with climate issues. Oh, you got to love CBS News for that. I've got another fun story from CBS News that I'll try to throw in as a bonus. Especially the crop-killing frost, which kills them off. You know where there's not crop-killing frost? In certain areas where they actually just grow coffee beans and they can't grow them anywhere else. All right, the average retail price of 100% ground roast coffee hit a record high of $9.14 per pound. And that was in September. The cost has been going up. Some of you have experienced it. Our coffee, we do a mixture. We've been using Blackout like we had as a sponsor, and I've got a bunch of that built up, and we bought it before because I knew this was coming. We also buy some from Costco. Interestingly enough, Costco has also jumped into a major lawsuit because the Supreme Court has been listening to whether or not the president has the unilateral decision to apply these types of tariffs. And there's a Supreme Court case which was argued, I think, last month, and it was not looking very favorable for the government's case that the president has the ability to just unilaterally apply these things. It hasn't been done before, regardless of what Trump talks about. It's not a thing that has been tested, and it doesn't sound like the Supreme Court's going to get in. So now you're starting to see major companies, and Revlon was one of them, the cosmetics company. There are a couple of like the glasses company, Lux, whatever it's called, Lexor Exotica. And Costco just jumped in as of the last couple of days. They're all filing their lawsuits because they smell the blood in the water that the government is going to lose this. And then those tariffs that were collected, which we've been told is going to make all the difference in the world. We're going to be able to shut down the IRS. They've actually looked like they may not survive the legal challenge. And these lawsuits are asking for damages from the federal government. So all that money, remember we were going to get a $2,000 tax rebate. That's what the Treasury Secretary said. We're going to see some sort of dividend check for Americans. Yeah, you're going to probably end up paying that in penalties if they lose in the Supreme Court, which looks like it's a real possibility. It's just interesting to me that one of these little small things that kind of doesn't necessarily have to matter. It does matter because it's every person's day. When I say that the federal government doesn't really affect your morning, it doesn't. Except if it affects your coffee. I think we could agree on that. It doesn't change the stoplights. It doesn't change whether or not the water is coming out of the tap or the electricity turns on, generally speaking. But there are a few weird, small, little quirky ways. And this was not a particularly great one, because when government increases the cost, what's the payoff to us? It's not like we got rid of the IRS. By the way, I would be happy to pay more for coffee, and I think many of you would as well, if there was no more IRS. We would all be willing to pay. I think there was a proposal that went into Congress the other day. It said, take away the entirety of the income taxes, including on businesses, and just do a 30% consumption tax across the board. What they call like a value-added tax in Europe. I think we would all be willing to pay based on consumption, because those people who do not consume would be able to protect their income. Unfortunately, whether we're talking about a flat tax, whether we're talking about a consumption tax and repealing this, there's a massive advantage for the federal government to have a ridiculous tax code that is incredibly long, which I thought Republicans were against, and to continue to tax other things, this sort of taxing more, spending more. It's never like, hey, we need to justify the money we are taking from you. And for me, this is the big deal. As a regular American person who doesn't have to have a degree in economics, all I want to say is this: the money that I earn should be mine by right. It's my labor. It is what I do that generates it. It is my skills, my knowledge base, whatever it may be. The voluntary transactions that I engage with people. So why on earth do we have to justify how much we get to keep? And it's completely backwards. And in the last, and this is not forever, by the way, folks, this goes back to 1913. So this was not a thing that our federal government did. They didn't start with their hand on your check before you touched it a couple of generations ago. But every person who's alive today has grown up in a world where we now think of, well, what am I bringing home after taxes? I actually remember, this is just a complete aside. I remember in the movie Batman. Do you guys recall this? The Michael Keaton film, the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton thing? The guy Knox is the reporter, and he's trying to get questions answered, and he's trying to ask them of the mayor about the Batman. And he goes, is the Batman on the payroll of Gotham Police? And what's he bringing down? After taxes. This classic 80s journalist guy with the gumshoe hat on, all this kind of thing. That is a relatively modern concept in America. We didn't have it for more than the first half of this country's existence. It's just interesting. The default setting in my lifetime growing up was, what are we bringing in after taxes? Because we assume that the government's going to take the cut first. Just kind of interesting. And since we're talking about that and we're talking about Gotham, let's talk about New York City, which is Gotham City. I've got this real wacky clip that I saw the other day. It's a reminder that the weather is changing, at least where I am. Some of you guys have already been cold. And so the weather and the political regime is going to change in New York City, in Gotham City. Here's a little taste of propaganda. And then I wanted to go through, what the hell is this guy talking about? This is the government not just saying we're going to tax you aggressively. Remember, they just elected Zoran Mandami, an avowed actual communist socialist, whatever you want to call him. And everybody thought they were going to get free stuff. And he hasn't even gotten into office yet. And he's soliciting more money. I'm going to try to get into what that looks like too, because I thought that was kind of fascinating. And then we'll get into sort of the MAHA agenda here.
Friends, it's chilly out there. It's chilly in here. But one thing I'm warming up to is the idea of a fully funded transition. So go to transition2025.com, pitch in whatever you can. Let's win a city we can all afford.
He's warming up to the idea of a fully funded transition. So I went to transition2025.com, and this is the website. This is the wildest thing to me. Forget consumption taxes, forget money taxes on incomes. This is a guy who was elected to be the mayor of New York City, and he is now soliciting donations to hire an entire staff of people so that he can prepare to be the mayor of New York City. And he wants more money. Give him some money. It's a new era for New York City. So he says, the transition work starts now. Mayor-elect Mandami won with a vision to make New York safe and affordable. This is how the administration is going to hit the ground running to deliver on this agenda. Donate money to make it more affordable. Isn't it funny how that works? The people that think government is the solution, it's always using OPM. It's always other people's money. There is no office of the mayor-elect. But there is apparently a request for more money. So anyway, I just thought this was funny. I was just looking through it. I was like, well, what are they promising to do with this money that they want to gain? They're telling you that they are powering by the people. They've got 104,000, almost 105,000 volunteers. They knocked on 3.1 million doors. They made a bunch of phone calls. They sent all these text messages. By the way, the phone calls, and I guess the phone calls cost something. The door knocks take some opportunity cost. The text messages is a weird thing to be excited about. But anyway, and then they go out there and they tell you he was born in Uganda and he was raised in New York City, except I think he's only been a citizen for like 7 years. So that's weird for a guy in his mid-30s. And they're going to go ahead and bring down the cost. They're going to deliver for all New Yorkers. And how are they going to do it? They're going to do it by a bunch of people who are CEOs of major corporations and a bunch of people who have been in federal government, the Federal Trade Commission chair. This looks so swampy. By the way, it's all women with ethnic last names are who he's leaning on until you get down to the bottom here. It's just a weird thing to scroll through. They all have hyphenated last names too. There's some of that. There's his chief of staff. They all look lovely. They just seem like lovely people. And so they've announced all these things that they need $1 million to be able to get ready so they can go and take over their jobs. They're preparing for their jobs with your money to do the jobs that is paid for with your money. And they need to shape the future of the city. So apply now to be part of the job program, but also donate now. And when we click on the donate, what does it want us to do? It wants us to give $10, $50, $100, $250, $3,700 to help transition this guy into the job. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. Like, they never stop asking for this money. It's never not about how can we get more of your cash, is it? Just propaganda stuff. It's chilly. It's chilly out there. Let's do some MAHA stuff because this is actually pretty wild. Here is the story. And I think this is actually going to tie into a lot of the other stuff too. Kelly Ryerson just announced a major win against Big Chemical. The EPA can no longer rely on the fake studies that they've been using for decades to defend glyphosate. This is coming from MAHA Action, which is a reporting group. This is a journalistic organization, not a governmental one. Quote, I've got some good news from the glyphosate cancer world. I'm going to let the woman actually say it herself. We've got a little video kind of laying this out. And then I want to kind of dive into this story, which I actually think was a really good agenda. And it would have to do with maybe less of the weird regulations and maybe less of like claiming things that are not true. I don't know. If you're going to make America healthy again, shouldn't we quite simply do things that make us healthier and not defend poison on food?
I have some great news from the glyphosate cancer world. There is a paper that was published in 2000. It's called the Williams paper. This study has been relied on by the EPA for 2 decades to claim that glyphosate doesn't cause cancer. Well, during the cancer litigation, the lawyers found that that paper was actually ghostwritten by Monsanto. That was bought fraudulent science that had no place whatsoever in regulation. Well, so even though we've been telling the EPA this, you shouldn't rely on this paper, they still have been. Well, that paper was just retracted from the academic journal where it was originally published for exactly these reasons, that it was fraudulent science. So now the EPA won't be able to rely on this foundational piece that they always point to claim that glyphosate doesn't cause cancer. So that is a win today in the pesticide world.
Okay. That seems like a pretty good win. We shouldn't have companies funding scientific research with a predetermined outcome, ghostwriting the paper, and then using that to rely on the government using that to rely on what's going on. Why was that something that popped up in my head? Maybe because I'm seeing this fake feud that just popped out between Dan Bongino and Miranda Devine, which is what we're going to cover at the end of the show here. And I've had my own little feud, and it came from an interaction with this lady. And this is something I think I showed you guys before. If you've never seen this, is called the Genetic Literacy Project. Science, not ideology. And this is the body of work of Julie Kelly, the famous January 6th journalist. Before she was a January 6th journalist, she did propaganda. And she did so. This is a repository of her propaganda. Many of the stuff has been actually taken down from the various different newspapers where it was originally written. You can't access it anymore because they realized that, in fact, some of this stuff was ghost written in the exact same way that the MAHA lady there was just talking about. Monsanto has a very aggressive propaganda campaign, and they have for a very long time. And this is one of the groups that was part of it, the Genetic Literacy Project. And of course, it actually houses all of the pro-GMO, anti-USDA organic labeling, blogging, if you will, which is what it was called, food blogging of this woman, Julie Kelly. When I claim that she's a propagandist and that we have propagandists, that are willing to just take money and do certain things, or maybe they're willing to just have influence and do certain things, I'm not just saying that out of turn. I think this is pretty well documented. I want to get into what the GLP, the Genetic Literacy Project, is, but just showing you kind of a quick survey. These are calling people hypocrites for mislabeling things and hating on GMOs. This is like probably the most wild of all the little stories that she did. Pro-GMO marchers have unfocused angers in the march against Monsanto. If you guys are wondering, glyphosate, if you're not familiar with it, it's Roundup. It is a broad spectrum wide leaf killer. So it kills off things that have certain types of leaves and not others. So you can, leave the things that you want in theory, your grass types that are going to grow your food, which is great, except if it kills off some types of leaves, it probably doesn't do really great things in your body, which is something that people have been arguing for a long time. And that there's like, cancer that could come from it. Yeah. And this is a truly shill-based weird thing. Like, imagine if you were the most scientifically minded person in the world and you think that genetically modified organisms, which is to say genetically tweaked food products that grow, are the best thing ever. How many of you would put on an ugly green raincoat and then stand on the street corner in fill in the blank city, I think this is in Manhattan, and hold a fake hand-painted sign that says, "I feed my kids GMOs," and smile like a demon there? It's kind of wild. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an understanding of what the Genetic Literacy Project was and why I thought that this should all be part of this MAHA agenda. This is a quick little AI summary of which I've substantiated this over the last probably 2 years. So I want to read a little bit of it. The Genetic Literacy Project is a nonprofit organization that promotes agricultural biotechnology, aka GMOs and pesticides, and it's faced scrutiny for its financial and operational ties to Monsanto, which is now owned by Bayer, the aspirin company out of Germany. I think it's out of Germany. Critics, including journalists and public interest groups like the U.S. Right to Know, have described it as a corporate front group. And here's the details of the relationship. I'm going to read those because then there's also an article that substantiates most of this as well that I've seen and I've kind of evaluated, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Bayer, which acquired Monsanto. Monsanto is the company that owns the product or the patents on glyphosate and Roundup. Confirmed in 2019 that it no longer has a financial support with the Genetic Literacy Project, but these court documents have been suggesting past funding and coordination. In 2020 and 2021, Bayer paid the GLP $100,000 to prevent legislative overreach into genetic engineering. In other words, it gave $100,000 to this so-called nonprofit to essentially do lobbying work on their behalf. And one of the problems is that it's been doing white papers and ghostwriting these papers and then getting people who have some degree of credibility for one reason or another, to include people like Julie Kelly. The papers have been retracted from most journalistic outfits because they have been, in fact, determined to be ghostwritten, just like you heard that woman just say a moment ago. And the other wild part of it is that the entire startup of this particular organization, this is the article here. This is coming from a woman named Stacy Malkin. I think I've actually covered this before, but I'm going to cover it because it's been at least a year. The startup for this Genetic Literacy Project, which is one of the few places where you can find Julie Kelly's food blogging. And it's not just about Julie Kelly. It's about the broader aspect of how much of the stuff that we read, whether it be in the popular press or the mainstream news, is straight up propaganda that is being funded by people who have a desperate PR need for it. If you guys have ever worked in the media space, you may have some concept of this. You'll talk to somebody and they'll go, I've got a connection at fill in the blank place and I can get an op-ed or an editorial placed in the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times. They have access to something. So these PR firms oftentimes are helping place favorable press because even though when you read it that it says it's an opinion piece, and therefore it is not going to be something that is like the editorial board is 100% behind, it kind of has the stamp and the approval of the editorial board. And this is what this particular article says, is that the Genetic Literacy Project is in fact a PR front for Monsanto, Bayer, and the chemical industry. They got started with $100,000. I should go down to the origins. The founder is a guy named John Entine, and he's the founder and director of the Genetic Literacy Project, which is also the founder and the principal of ESG Media Metrics, which is a PR firm that had Monsanto in its client list right up until they went and they got this geneticliteracyproject.org nonprofit off the ground. He worked in PR for Monsanto and for Bayer, and then ducks over and starts this thing up. Maybe not for Bear. I guess Bear came in a little bit later. He's employed by a group called the Statistical Assessment Services, STATS. This is a nonprofit group that journalists have described as a specific disinformation campaign, downplays the health harm of toxic chemicals and products. And so GLP was developed as a, quote, cross-disciplinary program with STATS, which was something else he was doing. So this guy basically is a professional information op. And so sometimes we start seeing these information ops bleed into other venues. I imagine if you're willing to take money or if you have a vested interest in pushing a propaganda type thing, then you might be willing to bend some other principles. And that's where I think the real problem has come in for what we look at this Trump administration. Broadly speaking, there's a lot of people there that are willing to represent interests, whether they be Qatari, whether they be Israel, whether they be some big government group. And we all thought they were coming in under the principles of like America first or America only, that they were going to look after like the little guy, that they were going to go and try to do small government. Somebody said something to me the other day that I cannot unhear. It goes like this. On the highway to hell, Republicans are just Democrats who are going the speed limit. I want you to think about that. Because if we truly believe that there is, in fact, a uniparty, if we think that there is no difference, generally speaking, between either of the parties, and they all are kind of playing out of the same sheet of music, the only differential is that one side, which we now have to consider our side, even if they're not really representative of us, they're just doing things more slowly. They're still representing big government. They're still trying to take their hand in your pocket and pull your money, but they're doing it at a rate that is not nearly as insanely chaotic and reckless. They're going the speed limit as they push this country ever further towards leftism and further towards governmental control, which is essentially a godless position. And what's wild to me is the same people who really, really get behind that also seem totally okay with the groups that are trying to push this generally theocratic idea, which a lot of Islamic countries have. Isn't that strange that they've aligned themselves? The connections between Islam and Marxism are pretty well established in a lot of other ways, and I'm not going to go and belabor that. But I just think that was strange. I want to tell you first we're going to do the story of the Alina Habba being disqualified, because I think it shows that the unserious nature of understanding the threat that we are seeing the administration who came out and talked really big, whether it be make America healthy, whether it be that they were going to de-weaponize government, to fill in the blank. And what he ended up doing was putting a lot of pretty people and good talkers into roles that needed action. And there is an argument to be made that it doesn't matter how good you look if you are capable of governing. And oftentimes this is the problem. The people who are great at politics are really, really good at campaigning, and they are absolutely atrocious at doing the governance end. We are seeing that right now, which is why I think there's a major danger. So we're going to talk about that in 1 second. Before we do, let's go ahead and talk about my buddies over at Patriot Coolers. This is easy to do because they are sitting right in front of me at this exact moment. Here they are. This is one of them. This is the 16-ounce coffee mug. It's got a great handle. It's good for a desk. It is not good for a cup holder. You need the taller one and the bigger one, which might be counterintuitive if you're going to be driving around. But check out Patriot Coolers at patriotcoolers.com. The promo code is KYLE. You guys know where to find them. There's a link in the show description. We'll take you to the creator collection, I guess, the Kyle Seraphin Show stuff, which are all Suspendables logos. If you want to have one that has the upside down flag with the Suspendables badge, if you want to have one that has just the badge upside down with the S in it, you can do that too. It's really fun to have that. And then people will look at you wherever you go, airport, sitting at work, and they'll be like, your badge is upside down. And you're like, no, the agency is upside down. It's a running theme here that our government is really upside down and what its priorities are and its focus. And the folks at Patriot Coolers have been cool about both supporting us in that message and in being able to put out some merchandise that actually shows that stuff. So check them out. Link in the show description. Again, use my name, KYLE. You'll save yourself 10% at checkout. I think it's $50 or more. You get free shipping. I think $75 right now, and you get a free canteen as well. So you'll get an extra bonus gift. So check out what their spending levels are, and maybe that makes sense for a free gift for you while you're buying a gift for someone else. Holidays coming up, and so on. Let's do Alina Habba. Here it is. She's real pretty. She surely is. The appeals court has upheld the ruling that has disqualified Alina Habba. This is the same problem that they faced with the Comey indictment, that there was an improperly placed United States attorney So this is actually showing a broader problem. So first of all, there's a Trump administration issue, which is that they're not actually nominating people who are going to go out in front of the Senate and get confirmed. We have this little requirement. There is an advice and consent of the Senate. There's another problem in there. The Senate is broken. There's no way around that. Our Senate is broken, and we're seeing it in the last, let's call it 10 years. It has become more and more broken than it's ever been. But all of this has to do with the fact that our Senate is not representing the way that it is meant to. The Senate is now just another representation of the people. It's just a longer term. It's the upper house in name only, because it doesn't actually represent the upper power, which is supposed to be the states. Again, I will make this argument to you, and this is the thing that I will keep sharing until people all understand it. We had a constitutional amendment that removed the original founding principle of the United States Senate. We have two houses of Congress. One of them is the House. It's the lower house, the House of Representatives. It is meant to represent you, the person, the we the people part, the individual voters, the masses, the mob. And the other was meant to represent the state houses. And as written in the United States Constitution, we had this very simple format, and the format was the people get their representative. There's 435 of them, and it's based on population and density and so on and so forth. And then you have an upper house with just 100 people, and they are meant to represent and be appointed by the state legislatures. So whatever power that you have, if you're a red state or a blue state, based on the way that your legislation works in your state, you are meant to have a consolation and a sort of filtering down of power. And it should be easy to get super majorities there. And it should not be something where we are basically 1 or 2 away at any given moment from not having a 2/3 majority. It's not supposed to be like that. You can't get people through. The idea that a Senate confirmation process would be so incredibly contentious. It's happened in my lifetime, but it's happened in my adult lifetime that there's not a guarantee that people will actually make it through. And it is because that problem has broken. Our 2 worst, well, maybe our 3 worst amendments, but the 2 worst that we can point to, like structurally, the 16th and the 17th Amendment. These all happened in 1913, and we centralized power in the federal government by giving them the ability to tax, and we took away power from the states by not allowing them to have the state houses put senators into office, and we did direct election of senators. And this screwed us. It really has. It's taken a very long time to get there. And then, of course, we make the argument, too, that the 19th has also been an issue, which is the women's suffrage. And all of that stuff is about expanding the franchise. And so the idea of women voting is not offensive because of women. The worst part about expanding the franchise is you get more people to be able to have a vote, which means you individually, as an educated, intelligent person, you now have a lower ability to affect things with your individual vote. When you expand the franchise, you cheapen the vote for everybody else. And necessarily, by adding more people, you're going to lower the common denominator of IQ. You're going to lower the common denominator of capabilities. You're going to lower the common denominator of understanding this system, because people don't even know what it is they're voting for. And the ones that do, that are voting against what I think is right, which is less government, more freedom, more ability to raise your children with your own sort of, morals and ethics and religious principles. They actually think that government is kind of like the God. They actually think that your rights and all things should come from government. I made this argument when I was working with Catholic Vote. I said that people on the political left have a secular religion. They kind of do. I'm going to show you probably the opposite of an Alina Habba, in so much as she's not claiming the right things. She thinks she's pretty, but she looks like a skeleton. I don't know what this thing is when you go into a plastic surgeon, or you go into like a Botox doctor and you ask them, you're like, give me the horrible, shrill bitch face or whatever this lady does. But like, it looks awful. She's obviously done something to her face. Her nose is cut. And I'm saying this cosmetically because she goes out there on these television shows regularly and she presents herself in a way that she must think looks good. And it looks shrill and awful. And then she says things that actually reaffirm what it is that I think by looking at her. There's a reason that like all the women that look like that seem to have the same bad ideas, and I can't tell which comes first. Do you say, I've got all these bad ideas, I want to look like the bad idea lady? Or do you go like, oh, I look like this thing, I must have bad ideas? You guys tell me in the comments what you think. This is a woman named Jennifer Wells. She's apparently from Oklahoma. She is not like the Okies that I knew. I went to college in Oklahoma for 5 years. I knew almost none of them. I'm sure there's more of them now, but this is like entitled, suburban, awful lady, leftist, telling you exactly what we just said, that leftism is essentially a secular religion and she's better than you. That's what she's claiming. That's why we have such a break right now, because we have a values problem. Ready?
My response is always, we don't disagree politically. We disagree ethically and morally. We're completely different people. I am not for denying people due process and kidnapping them off the streets and sending them to CCOT in El Salvador, where these people were sexually abused. I'm not for taking people away from their families with no criminal record and shipping them off to some torture chamber in Africa. And this is happening all the time. I'm not for the law being applied to Donald Trump and his rich friends one way and to Black and brown Americans a different way. We're completely different morally. I really am pro-life in the sense that once a person is born, that I want Americans, hardworking Americans, to be able to live with decency and self-respect and not feel bullied by the ruling class. So we're just, right now, these are not political differences. These are complete moral differences.
She's making an argument, I guess, one, that she's better than you. Two, that she cares more about you than you know. You're not even smart enough to know what's good for you, which is a special thing. She is also saying that she cares about hardworking Americans, but she's also going to go out there and lump in people who came here illegally. And all of it based on a moral superiority that doesn't have any basis in, like, I don't know, the Christian worldview that the West is founded on. It's an interesting argument to make. I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I know more about you. I know more about how the working class works. And here she is. It's that white savior complex that you see in certain types of liberal white women who all get that same look, whatever that look is. The paralyze my forehead, paralyze all the movement around my eyes, inject in some toxins, better living through chemistry, right? And then they do the fillers and the facelift and they tie their hair real tight and they just seem unhappy. Like there's nothing about her that says joy or happiness or smiles. It's all vindictiveness. And I'm a better person than you morally, but like, we don't agree with your morals. And apparently you seem to think that there are plenty of sort of morally relativistic ideas because they're going to bring in people from other countries who do not share the morals and the values of this country. That's come back into glaring relief. I shared this on social media the other day. I'm going to share you a short clip. I'm reminded of those women that work in our federal government, and they are pervasive in the middle management of my former agency, but they're all over the place. They think they're right. They can't even hear themselves. They cannot hear the way that they sound to normal people. And so I'm going to play you an analogous clip. This is from a conversation I had on July the 10th of 2022. That's before you ever heard my name. That's before I spoke to Dan Bongino for the first time in the interview I sat down with. And this is another woman who essentially tried to make arguments that the process is important and that government is great. And for a bunch of reasons, and this woman also characterized herself as a Christian. I think she tried to say that. She used to wear a cross outside of her jacket or outside of her dress. Her name is Marilyn Melky. She's now retired and she's out there advocating for the betterment of the FBI. It's kind of interesting because we had this one little interaction for an hour and I formed all my opinions based on they're just Democrats going the speed limit. She may not even be a bad person, but I bet you all of her ideas are awful. She also claimed to be a scientist at one point with no scientific information, just the worst. But specifically when it comes to how is our country going to survive bringing in a bunch of people that did not belong here? Illegal aliens and Afghan refugees are now top of mind right now. And of course, we're blowing up boats, which is the other thing that the left is really mad about. They're really mad about boats being blown up overseas or down in the Caribbean. And interestingly enough, there was almost none of this crying when Barack Obama was doing such things. Just want to play you this. This was my pushback against this lady talking about who we brought in when it came to the Afghans.
because the real threats get through because we don't know about them. And we let them through when they came in from Afghanistan. Because I was at the refugee camps. I've never spoken about it publicly, but I saw tens of thousands of Afghans come in. And I watched dozens of them raping little boys that we had to pull them out. And we didn't go prosecute those guys either. We let them into America. We let dozens of little boy rapers into this country because they were CIA assets and they had worked with American forces at some point, rather than throwing them out on their ass and leaving them somewhere in the Middle East. So there's a lot of broken things that happen, and it's just the volume of it is so extreme. There's literally no way I think that you could say that the FBI is not without absolutely filthy hands in all of this. It's been complicit, and it's been part of it. And so, whether or not it doesn't matter what the enemy thinks. The American public already knows this. Like half this country has zero faith in the FBI because of what the FBI has done, not because of what Kyle Seraphin has done. It's completely irrelevant to me. Like they don't care what I say. They already knew it. They're watching people get arrested in political parties, like some banana republic third world garbage. And I can't believe that we got part of that. Like, I never signed up to be part of that. I'm sure you didn't either.
It's hard for me to go back and listen to this stuff, but it is a time capsule because I was sitting there before ever having anything in media, before having a podcast, before even considering doing a podcast, and before I even considered even going forward and having a public conversation with anybody. I know I was sitting at my parents' place and we're like, what are we going to do here? How is this going to work out? And the issues that were on my mind were vetting and immigration enforcement and bringing in people who were incompatible with our values, bringing in little boy rapers. By the way, we got the only one that I was able to find specifically that was being groomed and raped. We got him out of there, but we couldn't prosecute them. So we have two simultaneous issues. We've got the issue of somebody that came here that's angry, and I showed you yesterday, like the Afghans that are furious that this country did not live up to whatever promises they believed that they were supposed to get. And then we have an administration on one side. It was the Biden administration, and they were actively not going after certain people. They were actively holding back prosecutions of those that were in the Chinese infrastructure, that were part of espionage or technology transfer. They wouldn't let us go after some of these Afghan people that we brought in because it would put really, really bad press on them because they imported the problem to America that was already overseas and we didn't need it here. And then you got the Trump administration where they're just unable to just follow the simple rules of getting somebody through the process so they can actually have a United States attorney that can bring charges against someone, which is why the Comey stuff's going to end up falling through. The appeals court is the status quo. The appeals court and the federal judiciary, it does what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to basically put a check on things and say, yeah, you can't come up with novel interpretations. You can't go out there and throw tariffs on something when no one's done it before. You can't come up with a interim, United States attorney in New Jersey. Can't do any of that stuff because it's holding the line. It is the speed limit. I want to play you this piece here because the claim was made that by recognizing these problems, I was the problem. The backstory on this is like a 68-minute phone call. If you guys are new to this program and you hadn't heard this before, it is available on the Rumble channel. I think it's also available on YouTube. It's certainly available over on X in a couple of places. It's in my timeline recently. It's haunting to listen to it, even for me, and I was there. It's so bizarre to get a look into the mind of the bureaucratic administrator inside the government who's not a bad person and yet is awful in the same way that Jennifer Welch character is awful with the paralyzed face. Like the worst thing for this country because they cannot see outside of the thing that the purpose of my job is to get paid and to do the job that I was asked. Not broadly speaking, what are the consequences of my actions? What happens if we give the federal government the ability to tax us directly? What happens if we remove everybody that asks questions or pushes back and says this may be illegal, immoral, or unethical? The woman that I spoke to, Marilyn Melky, who I'm going to play another little clip from as well, because I found it again, and I found a great analogy to the way that Barack Obama even spoke. And I guarantee she's not a big Barack Obama fan, but at the end of the day, their operational mindset is very similar. She said, you shouldn't say what we're doing bad because the enemies of America will see it and say, there's an FBI agent who says what we're doing badly. And therefore, we know that there's a weakness there. This is the exchange, just so you understand where the setup was. Because by claiming that, we shouldn't be doing drone strikes, That's a reasonable thing, that you should have dissidents in your government on both sides pushing back and saying, this is bad policy, this is bad action, we shouldn't be doing these types of collections of tariffs or taxes, or we're not implementing this properly, or we're not doing anything right. All good. And if the problem is that the person who spoke up and said, hey, this is not right, is the actual problem, that's what I experienced in our government. And that's why we're not seeing the change. And the disruptive guys went in there and they didn't do that. They didn't hold the line and keep saying the unpopular thing, which is why we end up with an article or a post about deep state Miranda Devine, of all things. Anyway, this lady is the sort of people that are senior members of government that are in these administrative positions are surrounded by.
If you go around and tell them that we're a big pile of nothing or worse, then yeah, they're going to go, oh, see that? There's an FBI agent that's saying it's crap. There's nothing left to believe in. And don't you think that our adversaries want to just hug you for what you're saying and what you're doing and the undermining of America's faith in the only piece of infrastructure of government that is there to protect the American people?
No, I don't think the enemy has any interest in what I'm about, because I'm such a small symptom of what's going on right now. We put a search warrant into the sitting president's house. Like, people have lost their flipping minds. We have done things like pick up a man who was a Catholic street preacher, and he was a father of 7, and he was defending his son. If someone came up and said the things to me in front of my children that they said to that man, I don't know if that person would still be breathing at any age. I would thrash them within an inch of their life. And all he did was push them out of the way and said, please stop talking to my son like that. And we went and arrested him. And
you cannot say that and think that our adversaries are not going to grab hold of that. Please don't say that. I think this is where your youth is working against you. To say something like that is so detrimental to this country as a whole. The country bigger than the FBI, bigger than the Department of Justice. It's the entire country. And yes, we are in wars with adversaries that would just love for you to keep saying that and put that out in as many news channels as possible, so that the whole of the American public loses faith in the only piece of infrastructure that is there specifically for them.
Imagine thinking that there's a piece of government infrastructure that is just there to protect you. And she believed that. I'm confident that she wasn't lying about her belief there. But it is a truly disruptive idea to me that you think that whatever we do must be right because we do it for the reasons that we've been told. It's so crazy to me. And she didn't convince me, by the way. It's 68 minutes. The first 15 minutes or so, she just kind of like hammers on and yammers about her perspective. And the last 40 minutes or so, I just beat her against the ropes very politely, like you just heard me say. I gave her example after example after example. And this is where we always have to come up with facts. We have to come up with not just our opinions and our feelings, but factual, backstopped information. And you'll find that they never have it to push back. Ever. That woman who was telling me that I had to go through the FBI's process she didn't understand the underlying assumption of her statement. And this is actually relevant to this entire podcast. We should always be analyzing what is it that our underlying assumptions are based on. Her underlying assumption is that success for Kyle Seraphin equals job at the FBI, returned into good graces, and paycheck turned back on. And my answer was, the definition of success was destroy everything that is evil, do not tolerate wickedness, and do not allow it to seep into your children's future. If that means temporary discomfort, so be it. Send me, Lord. That's been the underlying message here. So we've leaned into a bunch of really uncomfortable pushback against really powerful people from a very small and humble abode. Again, here's the room that I operate out of. It is an extra bedroom or a media room in a house that I rent that I don't even own. And I can't put up a power grid for my lights, so I got poles and stuff like that. There are better ways to set this up, but I don't own this space. And I'm willing to continue doing the thing that makes the most sense, because what it means is otherwise we cede territory to these people who quietly do the worst thing. They go along, they're running the speed limit on this highway to hell, which is why so many people are frustrated with the current administration, because we were promised a U-turn. We were promised a turn. We're going to put in people that are 100% behind America. We're going to put in people that understand the challenges of like regular people and working class folks and people who make good money, but think it should go further than it does. Because the same, like I make less money than my father did. And that's not common, but I live really well. And so we kind of have this weird moment in time where we're not sure what the trade-off is between quality of life and the dollar amount. But we know that our dollar doesn't go very far when we go to use it in important places like housing markets. When we go out there and try to buy a vehicle, and when I was a kid, you could buy a Ford F-150 base model for like under $15,000. And now they're closer to $50,000, which means my dollar is worth less every single day. And we hate that. And if we hate that, we just look and we go, okay, what's the problem? Is it because we just aren't complying hard enough? We're just not doing what we are told hard enough? Or is it because our government continues to be the succubus that pulls all of the value out of everything and strips it out, and the people that work there think that what they're doing is important and valuable? And do they have any argument for it other than, don't do that, you're going to offend people and they're going to think otherwise? How about another guy who said something like this? Because in my lifetime, this was one of the big turning points of it. There was a guy named Barack Obama who came in and claimed to do one thing, and he didn't do it. He is essentially the Donald Trump of the other side, in so much as he's charismatic. He made big promises that he didn't actually fulfill. He was unable to capitalize on the thing that he claimed because either his principles weren't clear or he was a liar the whole time. It doesn't really matter because we can know him by his fruits. Here he is, October of 2016 versus December of 2016. During that time, I was in the FBI Academy and I graduated out and I went to my first field office. And amazingly, the only institution which I went to go work for, which was set up, the apparatus that was meant to defend the American people from force and fraud, apparently it just completely failed in the 2016 election because it let Donald Trump in. Same vibes. Don't say this or you're giving comfort to our enemy. If you are a dissident, you're the problem.
When you try to sow the seeds of doubt in people's minds about the legitimacy of our elections, that undermines our democracy. No, I want everybody to pay attention here. That is dangerous. You're doing the work of our adversaries for them. Because our democracy depends on people knowing that their vote matters. That those who occupy the seats of power were chosen by the people.
Every intelligence agency in the federal government arrived at a consensus that the Russians had hacked the DNC, and the information that was now being released was as a consequence of a decision by Russian intelligence and Russian officials at the highest levels.
Wow, and there's Russiagate right there. Did you hear what he said? If you sow seeds of doubt in the legitimacy of our elections, we undermine our democracy. Really specific. Democracy is the enemy of the constitutional republic. And democracy continues to make advancements. It does it when it expands the franchise. It does it when it makes things more democratic by allowing people to vote for the folks that are in the Senate. It does it by giving more power to government. And what is the enemy of that? Sharing information that turns out to be accurate by his own words. Here at this podcast, one of the things that I aspire to do is undermine our democracy. Very clearly and very specifically through factual presentation, through my opinions, which are my opinions based on the values and belief that I've been raised in. But we actually need to undermine our democracy because democracy is everybody gets together and decides on what's the best path, and they are full of people who know nothing or little. They know less than us. They may not know anything at all. They can't defend their positions, but they feel really good about doing them. Which is why there's a transition 2025, why a guy who campaigned on socialism and we're going to go ahead and give you money back, that guy democratically is now asking for your cash. Why? Oh, because democracy is the problem. It's a bunch of dumb people agreeing on something. The smaller the voting pool, the more likely that intelligent people can sway things. I'll give you a great example. This is the new ongoing push that ICE is racist, which is what that Jennifer Welch woman was saying, that anybody who disagrees with us is a bad person and they're not worthy of debate. If there's enough of us in a democracy, then we don't have to actually listen to you if you're an intelligent dissenting voice. In fact, I was more or less democratically removed from my government position because I didn't go along with the mass. So I was voted off the island. It's very easy. It's like, well, that guy's the problem. We all think that we're doing great, even though we're violating civil liberties. That guy says, no, just get rid of him. Problem solved. We are now democratically in the right place. It's the same attitude as this woman on the streets of New York who is dressed nicely, even though it's not my taste. And she's talking to a man. She won't even deign to answer the question because she actually probably doesn't even know the answer. He's out there asking questions, which means he probably knows the answer to those questions as a reporter. And the answer is devastating to the argument. So why have the argument at all? We can democratically just boo him and silence these voices. This is why oppositional voices are important.
Can we ask why you're out here today?
We're out here today because there is an ICE raid, and New York City is doing the work of ICE, protecting ICE as they do illegal work to tear families apart in New York City. And as New Yorkers, we're not going to stand for that.
Is it illegal to enforce immigration law?
Okay, we're not.
Oh, okay, please don't touch the microphone.
Okay, well, who are you?
I'm a reporter. We have the right to enforce our immigration law?
You're such a dork. You're such a dork.
You guys aren't very articulate. What do you think about...
He asked you a question, answer it. Is he a criminal?
Relax a little bit.
No, I'm not going to relax.
Why are you out here today?
To protest.
Hey, I asked you a question.
What outlet are you with?
I'm here for, I don't know, it's a nice day, beautiful neighborhood. How about yourself?
We're out here talking to protesters.
Oh, yeah? How's it going?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
A little cold. Yeah. Do you think the United States has the right to enforce its immigration law?
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Yeah.
So why is that not what's happening here, in your opinion?
Yeah.
You're such a goober.
You are such a joke.
Can you articulate your position? Or... No?
Isn't it interesting? It just shuts him down. He's just asking a question. Should we enforce our laws? Are they relevant? Should we have some cultural boundaries here? Should we have some agreed upon things that we all do? Is there a thing called America? Can we democratically agree what that is? It's like, no, we're going to mandate what we believe because of ethics and morality and not religion. And we're going to have free speech for us. And if you have any questions, we're going to just vote you down. We're going to boo you. The masses will say that you are not warranted. So the voice of dissent is there. Remember, the First Amendment is not about popular speech. It's meant to be for inflammatory speech and offensive speech and speech that challenges us. And democracy does the exact opposite. That's why we have those amendments. That's what they were trying to protect us against. It's kind of interesting. I actually defend the right of people in Congress to say things that are unpleasant. I actually defend the right of our politicians to say things that I think are stupid and dangerous and potentially like radicalizing rhetoric. I think that's important. They should be able to say that because we should be able to expose it and go like, aha, that's a shitty idea that you have. We don't like it, but we're not going to stop you from saying it. We're going to challenge you and make you appear to be a fool. So we can do that. That's one of the reasons why I do what I do here. I'll play these clips of people. It's not like, look at the loony left. Look at these loonies. There's loonies on both sides. I'll show you one in a second. I'll show you Senator John Kelly saying something really dangerous and stupid about Afghan refugees coming in. And it's like, okay, you should say that. And then we should debunk it. And we should agree that it's a bad idea, what you came up with, because it's not a compatibility with our country. Let's just do that. Let's have all the speech. All right, speaking of speech, best place you can go so far has been not censoring us. Our friends over at Spotify, they put out our program for free, which is awesome. It's KyleSerafinshow.com if you want to get there. You may hear a Spotify ad at this exact moment. You can also join us on Locals. I've seen some of you have also kicked in on there. That's how we do our version of Back and Forth. That's the Democratic end of this. You can be part of our Locals community, and then we do a call-in show on Thursday nights where you get to say whatever it is that you want to say. If you're watching on YouTube, so far they've been letting our channel grow. If you've been watching on Rumble, same thing. Give us a like, give us a follow over there, or subscribe to the channel, depending on whatever it's called. Share it with a friend. Maybe they learned something. Maybe they don't agree with you. That'd be okay too. Let's play someone that's on quote-unquote our side that I don't agree with. I think this is terrible. This is going into that debate about borders and about whether or not we're going to have drug boats drone striked, whether we're going to have Afghan refugees in here and whether or not we're going to vet them. Like, this discussion is like 5-6 years old. This is the entirety of the Biden administration. And we had people that were on one side going, yeah, this is great. We need them. And another side, they didn't say otherwise. I played you Lindsey Graham yesterday. Here's John Kelly. He's a little bit more sympathetic to what we had. And I don't like what he says either.
There are about 18,000, not 1,800, 18,000 interpreters and members of their immediate family who helped our troops fight the war in Afghanistan against the Taliban and against ISIS. They are at risk. There was an article in a leading newspaper, Mr. President, yesterday. I'll read you the headline. It says, Afghan government could collapse 6 months after U.S. withdrawal. These 18,000 interpreters and their immediate families who have helped American troops would like to get out. We have a visa process which is going very, very slowly. We will not be able to get all of those 18,000 human beings out before the withdrawal in September. That much is clear.
Isn't that funny? Because that was before they did the withdrawal. Not only did they get those 18,000 out, maybe, except they missed a bunch, they got a bunch of others, like 60 or 70,000 on top of that. And a bunch of them had no business being here. And some of the people that were here, that got vetted into it. The guy that you're seeing on the screen, who shot 2 National Guardsmen, worked with the CIA, theoretically one of the people in that 18,000. I showed you the interp that shot at Fairfax PD, shot 2 cops in the arm and ended up being put down in his car. Left some angry kids, I'm sure. Also came here. So you can have your idea, expose it, let's punch holes in it. This is Andrew Wilson. I think he goes by Paleo Conservative or something to that effect, or Paleo Christian on X. He's regularly on the Whatever podcast. This is a debate that he does about why Islam builds bad societies and why, of course they want to come here, but why they shouldn't. And I don't know, maybe it makes some sense. Again, more speech. Maybe it's offensive to you. Shouldn't we hear all the data points and the sides? This is the same information, by the way, that I saw Gavin McInnes give to Joe Rogan and blow his mind. I think it's a reasonable argument. How come this wasn't had on the Senate floor?
Now, let me get into my argument for why Christianity makes better societies than Islam, and it's pretty simple. Islamic societies breed an inbred population. Next slide, please. Muslim inbreeding has been occurring at a high rate for about 1,400 years since the early Islamic period, encompassing most of the land still occupied by Islam today. It spread from the 8th to the 15th century, moved into Persia, North Africa, South Asia, where it remains and has created some of the dumbest fucking human beings on planet Earth. The most common type of inbreeding is first cousin marriage. The rates of first cousin marriage in comparison to Christian nations is staggeringly high, even in comparison to regions occupied by Arab Christians. When a nation has both Christians and Muslims, Muslims are often double or higher than Christians. Example, India, Lebanon. Next slide, please. Muslim inbreeding. Oh, sorry about that. Pakistan at 65%. 65%, meaning more likely than not, you're having sex with your cousin, and if you're not, you're the weird one. Okay? For the low IQ members of MDD, that means these people are more likely than not having sex with their aunts or uncles' children. Saudi Arabia, 50 to 58%, with an average 76 IQ. Who would have thunk it? UAE, 54%, 82 IQ. The crown jewel of the Arab world, you are more likely than not to be banging your first cousin. Iran, 40%, 80 IQ. Yemen, 45%, 62.9 IQ. Qatar, 30%, 80.8 IQ. Now, we're going to continue, right? Oman, 36%, 78. Syria, 39%, 74 IQ. Turkey, 25%, 86 IQ. Jordan, 32%, 80 IQ. Egypt, 32%, 76 IQ. It goes on and on and on, and it just never gets better. Next slide, please. Thank you. Compared to Christian countries, let's take a look. Usually less than 1%. Now I wonder why Christians build better societies, ladies and gentlemen.
That last slide showed Germany, France, the UK, Italy, Spain, United States, etc. Average IQ is roughly about 100, between 20 and 40 points higher. And the instances of first cousin marriages are under 2.5%, under 1%, depending on the country. Interesting. Ain't that something? Again, people who are giving facts are undermining our democracy. It turns out that our democracy means the more people you have, the more people who have lower IQs and maybe shouldn't be here in the first place, or maybe don't share our values, have a say. And there was a reason why the founders of this country was very specific. There were a couple of safety protocols they put in place. I thought they were important. So did they, it turns out. One of those safety protocols was really clear. Less people voting is better. And then the other one was eliminate the ability of the federal government to come in and have more power and give it to the closer instances to the states. Give it to the power that was closer to you, so it was more accountable. And in the last 113, 114 years, 112 years, we've done the exact opposite. We have had a concentrated slide for over a century of centralizing power in Washington, D.C., of giving more and more people the ability, the right to vote. So we've democratized and we've had predictable results. They are less good. And our living standards continue to go up because of technology, but they're being fought by the governmental regulations. And again, watching one side or the other, no one's over there doing a U-turn. No one has done the U-turn. Here's a little bit of dissent I think is interesting. This is the stuff we're quibbling about. Whether or not American military members are smoking drug boats that are coming into this country, and whether or not they are striking them and then striking them again. Because the law of the sea and the international laws of conflict. This is what is being cited. The story is from CBS. This one's from ABC. Senator Mark Kelly slamming Donald Trump, calls for an investigation into the Caribbean strikes for Pete Hegseth to testify. They want him to come out and explain his actions. He said, I will not be intimidated by this president. I'm not going to be silenced by this president and the people around because I have given too much service to this country to back down to this guy. This guy, it turns out, is the civilian commander-in-chief of the military. So that's who this guy is, Mark Kelly. But yeah, you should have a dissenting voice. Let's see what you had to say about it. Their major issue, their big concern is the potential illegality of the use of our troops. Again, where were these people when Barack Obama was drone striking people, to include American citizens, overseas? Was there a huge outcry from the Democrat Party, or were they running above the speed limit and the Republicans were asking questions, but also nothing changed? I think the answer is that we just continued on this path. It is truly scary to have extrajudicial killings of American people who are not in the United States. I don't think it's good. I don't like it. But that's because I care about America only. Here's Jake Tapper asking those questions. And what's funny is this guy is one of the few people in America who has the most protected speech of anyone. He could stand on the Senate floor and he could read or he could state from memory the classified, otherwise hidden justifications that he's talking about. He could give a summary or he could explicitly say it. And it has been done in the past. He could say things under the speech and debate clause that would keep him from these prosecutions. And instead, they do this limp-wristed thing where they say, well, they should declassify it because we say so. Chuck Schumer said the same thing. Let's start with Mark Kelly on CNN.
Well, they haven't released the legal justification for it. They said it's classified.
I've read it, but they should release it. They should release it to the American people. Why is a document that is explaining why we are moving a battle group halfway around the world at huge expense and putting American service members at risk every single day by operating in the Caribbean against these boats, why is the justification for that classified? It should not be.
Maybe it's not impressive. I mean, that would be the only thing I can think of.
Well, it's not that it's got problems. It's got a lot of holes in it.
Last question.
So you've seen it. Why don't you go out and talk about it? What are they going to do to get this out there? They're going to get Chuck Schumer to beg for the file, apparently.
You called on Hegseth to release the full tapes of the attack. We heard earlier in the show Chairman Wicker saying that he is seeking those tapes as well. What sort of action are Democrats prepared to take to try to make this happen, to getting those tapes?
Well, we hope that we can bring before the committees, bipartisan, as you said, Senator Wicker has been very much involved here, and get the top military people to testify, and we hope that they will release the tapes. You know, Hegseth is hiding something here, and he's known to be a liar. He said that the Washington Post story had no validity, and today the White House directly contradicted him that it did. And if he has nothing to hide, if he said he did nothing wrong, if he said no laws were violated, release the tapes.
You called on Hegseth.
If you have nothing to hide, then release the thing. Okay. Is that how it works? Why don't they do it? They have access to read the file. They have access to explain what was going on. Why don't they? They can do it on the floor of the Senate. None of these people, this is theatrical. Again, we're seeing the same thing from both sides. One of them is I think they're slightly better actors on the left, to be fair. I think that generally makes sense. Hollywood is comprised of people that are artistic. If politics is show business for ugly people, which does seem to be true, a few examples that are not fitting into that. Okay, fine. They're better actors. I'll give it to them. This is a halfway decent acting. Here's Chris Murphy. He really wants to run for something higher office, I suspect. He's freaking outraged, people. Look how serious he is. He's so serious, he couldn't even shave his 5 o'clock stubble. That's how serious he was.
Pete Hegseth needs to resign. And if he doesn't resign, Donald Trump needs to fire him. He is a walking, talking national security embarrassment. He seems more interested in winning video pull-up contests than he does in protecting this nation. He's obsessed with the weight of his soldiers, the facial hair of his soldiers, not concerned with actually keeping the country safe. He's leaking classified information. He's banning reporters from the Pentagon. There's no mainstream outlet right now that is telling you, the American public, what's happening inside the Department of Defense. But maybe most egregious is what we learned in the last week, that Secretary Hegseth gave a grossly illegal order, an illegal order to kill everyone aboard this vessel in the Caribbean, an order that ended up with our military not just shooting at the boat, but then shooting at the human beings who were swimming from their lives amidst the wreckage.
I don't know about swimming from their lives, but okay, fine. The problem with Pete Hegseth apparently is that he's really concerned with beards and the weight of the soldiers and their dress and appearance. Any of you guys serve in the military? I think we've got some in our chat in the mornings. If you served in the military, I remember an inordinate amount of time being spent on physical fitness, making sure that you were within in fact, I had monthly fitness tests to make sure that I was within weight and I had the speed and the capabilities to go through this. I also remember having daily inspections to make sure that my troops did not have beards, even though they were young. We checked them with a flashlight at 4 a.m. standing on a parade ground before we double timed it over to get chow. How about you? Anyone that was enlisted, anybody that was an officer, did you ever inspect your troops for fitness and for dress and appearance? Did you look for foreign objects on their uniforms? It just seems like a really important thing. Why is it? Why is it that it matters what you weigh and how you look? Because the way that you present yourself, the fact that they're even called uniforms, which is to say that all things are uniformly fit. The reason is because it helps cohesion to the unit. It's the entire purpose of it. So that when orders come down, everybody acts as a unit, not as an individual who has all kinds of like little, well, I have a mustache and I have this beard and no, you are all part of one team and you look one way. The idea that you all dress green and bleed red, that kind of idea, right? Everybody's supposed to be able to synchronize. That's the purpose of basic training. They break you down and they build you up in the image of what they want you to be. How about that? This seems really straightforward. Chris Murphy, no military experience. Just saying. He's really upset about that. Maybe we should get some experts who know about this stuff. I did want to go in. Since I'm talking about the danger of democracy, and I'm happy to undermine our democracy. I just wrote this down on this pad, so I'm referring to it over on my side. The reason that I want to undermine our democracy is because the way that our democracy has worked, and the people that are allowed to have a say, whether they be inbred Muslims or they be women on The View, there's plenty of them that are dumb. And here is who gets to vote as well. And one of these ladies cancels out my vote or your vote.
I can't speak to the law of it. I don't know. I'm not a geopolitical expert.
She's going to speak to the law of it and act like a geopolitical expert despite saying she is not. But here we go. Anyway, she cancels out your vote. Here we go.
I can't speak to the law of it. I don't know. I'm not a geopolitical expert. But in terms of the law of it, you're right, Sarah. That is why those Army vets explained do not follow, you do not have to follow illegal orders. You know why? Because if this is deemed to have been war crimes, which by all accounts right now, there are 7 sources that said Pete Hegseth did say kill them all, even after there were 2 survivors, which you're supposed to do under international law. You are supposed to take those fighters as war criminals, prisoners of war, and you're supposed to give them refuge, and you're supposed to take care of them, and then you are supposed to put them into a court of law. Instead, they killed them. That means the person who gave the order can be held accountable and put in prison, and that means the person that conducted, the people that conducted the orders, that pulled the trigger, are also responsible and can be held accountable. So now you have people that are serving their countries, that are serving this country as patriots, perhaps following an illegal order, and then themselves can be court-martialed.
Well, as much as I can handle. I don't think there's a veteran on that panel. I don't think any of them have ever taken any order. I don't think any of them defended or tried to push forward the message that some of us were being kicked out for an unlawful order when it came down to the COVID shots and the vaccines, right? Like that just didn't happen. It's amazing. She said that if you are shot down or if your vehicle is destroyed, then you're supposed to be taken as a prisoner of war or a war criminal, and she's not real sure what the difference is there. These are people who have never read the law of armed conflict and then also are going to tell us how it works. And they're telling a bunch of other ladies who watch the daytime view, and they all get to vote too, because democracy. And it's not about being ladies. It's just about dumb people. There are plenty of dumb people, and they get to vote, which is why our founding fathers were like real specific about who should have it. People who had skin in the game. Less voting was better for them. It's totally elitist. Seraphin, are you an elitist? 100%. Yes. Doesn't mean that smart people make better decisions. It just means that they might have the ability to process more information. That's all. And I'd rather throw my lot in with that and see how it goes. I'd rather have smarter and more involved and more successful people than not. Than a bunch of people who came here illegally and thought that breaking the law was fine to be able to vote on our laws. That's just me. Call me crazy. That's democracy in action right there. The View is democracy in action because there are enough people that want to watch that significantly more than watch this podcast. 100% true. That will always be the case. And it's comforting to them to listen to a couple of clucking hens say things that are completely ridiculous and have nothing to do with reality, but it sounds good and it feels good. And they look nice, and they've got good camera angles, and they've got good makeup. They don't look like the crazy lady from Oklahoma that we played earlier. Amazing. And their information is absolutely factually incorrect with nothing to back it up. But they get a vote. The chat is starting to say repeal the 19th. I'm just saying, it's not the only thing that I think is important, but all the time during there. You know what's even funnier? We actually repealed the 18th. The 18th was outlawing liquor. And although I'm a fan of people doing whatever they want to do, I don't know that there's a lot of outcomes that are much better because of liquor and because of booze. So at the end of the day, and for whatever it's worth, my grandfather went to prison for making bootleg liquor. So that's even funnier. I'm the grandson of a felon, a federal felon, all these things. All right. Talk about law and order a little bit. Let's go into the final stage here. Let's kind of just shut this thing down. Why are we dealing with unserious people? What are the scandals that are going on when we should be having correction of these dangerous government entities? This is one that's going to just kick up. Speaking of Democrats and their acting, I do think this is totally performative, by the way. It's not like they're doing it in good faith the way that I've been doing it, because none of them called out Chris Wray. But here you go. Democrats are beginning a congressional probe of Kash Patel's use of the FBI Gulfstream jet. This is being reported on by ABC News as well. Is it ABC? I think so. There it is. CBS News. Sorry. FBI Director Kash Patel's travel to watch his girlfriend sing at the Pennsylvania sporting event. We've covered this extensively, cited a bunch of recent media reports. No Kyle Seraphin mentioned in this one, but they should. The fact is that I've been principled on this for a reason. It's because I actually think there's a big problem to have our people fly around like they're princes. They start acting like they're not part of the people, and then they don't represent the people. It's not specifically because he went to go see a girlfriend, although I think that's a values issue. And it's not specifically because he went to go and do it on his free time. It's like, just buy a ticket or fly her in yourself. So now you've got Democrats writing in a letter. This is a Democrat named Jamie Raskin, who I despise. I do not like Jamie Raskin at all. And another one that I've never heard of out of California sent this letter to the FBI saying you flew there because your girlfriend was performing at a wrestling match on the campus of Penn State University. By the way, that sounds ridiculous on its face. You flew in a private jet to go watch your girlfriend sing. That's like something like a teenager would do. After attending her performance, you used the government jet to fly her home to Nashville. Your date night had no apparent connection to your official duties. Like, all those things are true. But where were you guys on Chris Wray? Because none of them were there. This is how my consistency keeps me centered on this, because it's not about the individual, it's about the action, right? And luckily, the hard-hitting questions were being asked by the Epoch Times the other day. I just want you to be able to, Patel should be able to defend himself. So let him defend himself from this situation. By the way, they also point out the Boondoggle Ranch, which we did a whole thing on, the scenic hunting resort, and GOP megadona Bubba Salisbury. They point out all this stuff in this letter, all this stuff, which is, essentially Kyle Serafin's bugaboo, people using government resources to enrich themselves, to live at a higher level than they should. And the reason why goes back to the thing I said at the beginning, which is that the default position is the government has its hand in your pocket and it takes your money first. And then you have to justify your tax cuts. You have to justify what money is exempted from government control. And part of our money goes to fund things like this. Anyway, at least he defended himself. He's saving us money. So how dare us?
Let's talk about the jet. You flew on a Department of Justice jet to visit your girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, performing at an event at State College. Were any rules broken?
No. And I'm shocked that people would, well, I guess I'm not shocked anymore. This FBI, under my leadership, changed the FBI plane use requirements so that we could save the taxpayer money. I am the only director to ever mandate the use of government airfields. The prior directors utilized airfields like Reagan National to the tune of $4 million for takeoffs and landings. And so I think this is another distraction from the work that we are doing here at the FBI.
So why is it that that is so frustrating to us? Maybe it's because he said things exactly the opposite. And he said that we should ground the jet. Maybe that's it. I'm not going to do Patel versus Patel right now. It's super easy to do. Let's go into the final kind of piece here, which is the story of Dan Bongino being, I don't know, petty. Like, you can have a totally useless, petty, grifty person run the FBI. I prefer that they wear a suit and not camouflage, but you could be whatever you want. And Chris Wray was. You can't have a non-functional FBI deputy director. Again, why does it matter more than some of the other things? Does it matter more than the Department of Energy? To me, it does. I don't know if anybody's ever been killed by the Department of Energy. It certainly is not frequent. I've never seen the Department of Energy spy on you. I've never seen them go out there and grab a Catholic father and prosecute him because he shoved a guy that was, saying profane things to his 8 or 10 or 12-year-old son. I haven't seen that. I do know the FBI did it. I saw them go after J6ers like you did. I saw a lot of that. This is why the FBI matters to me so much. Yeah, I worked there. Yeah, I've got some special expertise on it. But let's be real about it too. We're talking about an organization that can take your life. They can take your constitutional liberties, which are guaranteed that you are supposed to have the ability to speak and the ability to think the way you want and to be able to have like private association and to worship. And the Bureau has gotten involved in all those things. So we need a functional deputy director who runs it. And this is the deputy director right there on the screen. That's Dan Bongino. You'll see that he's blocked me on his personal account. Of course he has. Why? Because I said things that he didn't like. And apparently if you say something he doesn't like, no matter what the past association is, you become persona non grata. This is kind of fun. You got Laura Ingraham here cited. You've got Bongino saying something, and I'm going to read what this thing that blew my mind yesterday was, because I don't know if the guy's drunk or what. Honest to God, and I'm not trying to like impugn his honor. Drunk or just cracked, because you can no longer like suss out what is and what is not reality. Let's go to this quote right here. Deep State Devine is actually in the thumbnail. You guys can read it there. Deep State Devine strikes again. He's talking about Miranda Devine. Miranda loves attacking our reform agenda with gossipy anecdotes from disgruntled former employees because she's upset that her quote unquote reporting keeps falling apart under scrutiny. You can always count on Miranda for a timed hit piece when the director and I make big changes. Miranda prefers the old guard and I don't. Full steam ahead. This is the most, you know what? I'm going to just do Dan Bongino versus himself. Deep State Devine. She can always put out a hit piece. Really?
Something broke yesterday. Miranda Devine is one of the best reporters in the business. She wrote Laptop from Hell, which disclosure I published about Hunter Biden's laptop. The book was a huge success. She writes at the New York Post.
Yeah, she writes at the New York Post, and you just didn't like because she was pointing out something that is obviously true. You have not earned the respect or done the change of anything else. This guy is such a thin-skinned goofball. And it's really disappointing because for all of my dislike of what he did with me personally, and again, that's where we went there with the Julie Kelly thing. If you guys don't know the entire story, it was really straightforward. We were 100% on the same page. He was excited about the fact that we're bringing out, the dirty laundry of the FBI. This is long before FBI Deputy Director Dan. This is just Dan the podcast man. And he got upset because I pointed out that Julie Kelly was doing propaganda, which is what Julie Kelly does. And that was enough to kick me out. And apparently writing a piece that covers down on the information that current FBI and former FBI people are upset about because they wanted this organization to change and not come and kill us. That's what we wanted. I don't know who wrote that report. I had nothing to do with them. I had a reporter reach out the other day. They said, "Hey, Kyle, off the record, do you know anything about this report?" And I was like, "No, on the record, I don't. I don't know where it came from. I don't know who they are." How about that? At this point, Bongino got in there in March. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. We're at the beginning of December. He's almost at 9 months in. I've got 8 times as much experience in the FBI as Bongino does. I'm just saying. I've got 4 or 5 times as much as him and Dan combined. Him and Kash combined, rather. Miranda Devine, Deep State Devine, allegedly, went on and spoke to Laura Ingraham, who asked some really good hardball questions of Donald Trump, and good on her when she did. Is this what the deep state mouthpiece sounds like? I mean, they won't let me on Fox anymore, but I don't think Miranda rolled over on this. And she's just reporting what's true, which is that these guys are buffoons and they're not serious and they're going to get us killed.
The report, did say some good things about Patel, comments about Patel, working hard in other ways and respected in other quarters, especially field offices. But were these people on the record, or was this like the typical drive-by anonymous sources smearing the Trump administration?
No, it's anything but that. This is not a deep state cabal. It is, in fact, an alliance. They call themselves an alliance of these FBI professionals who came together in 2023 in dismay at the way the FBI had been weaponized and politicized under Christopher Wray during the Biden administration. And in fact, my reports, my stories on their previous reports have been, widely applauded by the same people who are now trying to shoot the messenger. I know these people, they're patriots, and they only have the best interests of the FBI in mind. And so they asked for a 6-month sort of report card on Kash Patel and Dan Bongino's performance, and they found 80% of their responses were negative. And I guess, what they hope and what I would have hoped is that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino would take this criticism on board as it's coming from Trump-aligned people. This alliance actually endorsed Trump publicly last October, saying that he had the best options for FBI reform. And so this criticism is coming with a good spirit, and, it can be taken in that sense to help Patel and Bongino improve what this criticism finds is lacking.
Wow, that sounds really fair and reasonable and balanced. And they endorsed Trump, and they said Trump was the best option for fixing the problem. You know who else said that? Which is probably why people came out and asked me. Me. I said it because it's true. Like, the alternative was really scary. But all we've seen is a complete failure, a complete ingestion by the system of the people. And now they're doing exactly the thing that they said they wouldn't do. And they're attacking journalists to do it. I'm going to show you this here because this is all just a funny little thing in time. This is from 12/11/2022. It's a couple months after the phone call that I had with the FBI lady that I played earlier. It's from Dan Bongino's personal account, which I'm now blocked from. Said my Sunday interview special with Israeli PM Bibi Netanyahu, at Miranda Devine, Julie Kelly, and former FBI agent Kyle Seraphin. There were 4 people that were part of that Sunday little gathering, which came from the radio show. Julie Kelly, Netanyahu, Miranda Devine, and Kyle Seraphin. Well, Kyle Seraphin is PNG'd. He got kicked out first. Miranda Devine apparently is now a deep state hit job person. So all that's left is Julie Kelly, the Monsanto propagandist, and Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. I sent this to Miranda the other day as kind of a joke. By the way, for what Miranda Devine has been to Steve Friend and keeping his story out there, Dan Bongino was to mine until he gave up on all of us. So it is pretty personal. And it's pretty rare that, I mean, it's bizarre that so much of this stuff is like personally affect, like the news story personally affects my life in a way that it doesn't affect most people's lives. You might be pissed. I find myself going like, okay, cool. Like now I know that they're monitoring my comms. This is the possibility that they're doing this. I've heard all kinds of back of the ground conversations. Bongino aggressively saying they're going to use FBI resources or his own personal fortune to come out there and try to destroy me. Do you know how crazy that is? Just this guy sitting here at this desk. And I'm not being false humble. I mean, I'm literally just this guy sitting at my desk. If any of you have met me, and some of you have in real life, I'm just this guy. I look like this. I dress like this. Generally, I'll put on a suit if I come and speak to you. But there's nothing particularly unique about what I'm doing. And the only thing that I do know is that I just stay on the principle. I just stay on the path and I say the things that I've been saying for the last couple of years. And by the way, I said them when I worked in the agency too, which is why I didn't have as many friends as I could, because I thought that the government is a shitty solution. Almost always. There's been this ongoing push and question about that guy. Oh, is he compromised by Israel? Like, what's going on with this Bongino dude? How is he like this? I want to tell you, this is not a recent phenomenon. And some of you have seen this little clip of him saying, what's a cause that's dear to my heart? It was a big joke that my wife and I had the other day. I shared it on social media, and it is a thing that she's seen, and we laughed. I wanted to give you context because I think in fairness, you should understand that this was like 22 questions with Dan Bongino. I'll post the entire thing over on our locals channel so you guys can see that if you want. I took a context, a little snippet, so you can see regular Dan, ba, 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 ba. I like these type of crackers. This is who would play me in a movie. I love my wife the most. She's the funniest. And also, I love Israel out of nowhere. For people who want to know, like, this guy was always this guy. He's just, there were always warning signs about some strange stuff like that. So, this is the famous clip that some of you guys want a little more context. It's a total of like 7 minutes. I cut it down to about 2.
Ready?
Ready.
All right. Where were you born?
Flushing Hospital, Queens, New York.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
I said the guy from American Pie, that kid Chris, but you think The Rock.
The audience is going to agree with me, The Rock. All right, if you agree with me, please.
I'm 230 pounds, though. The Rock is 20 pounds heavier. I think he's like 250. So
The Rock, sure.
He may have to slim down.
No. Oh, yeah. What is your biggest fear?
I'm intensely claustrophobic. Big time.
Who makes you laugh the most?
Oh, you, gosh, you make me laugh. Are you kidding me? Some of the stuff you've done. Right?
We did dance last night.
Yeah, the dance was awesome. If we would, you know how many books we'd sell? If you got up and did that dance right now? We would be #1 everywhere. We'd be #1 for, if you did that dance, we'd be #1 in perpetuity. There would never be another book sold on Amazon.
What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Lenny and Larry's protein cookies. Oh my, right?
He loves those.
Oh man, are they good? I tear
They run out all the time.
Oh, I eat those things like crazy. They're so good.
What is your favorite hobby?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, no doubt. I don't think is that even a question, you know?
Yes, that's true.
It drives her crazy. I watch Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu videos all day. Sometimes it drives her nuts.
Okay, you still watching this? Watch them over and over.
I love them.
What is the last gift you gave?
The last gift I gave. What is the last gift I only buy you stuff? What did I get you last? Oh, the earrings. Yes, the earrings.
Yes.
That was a good hint. I like it. You did that. They look good.
I know, right? I did that.
David Yerman.
I read this. I gotta put these on.
Yeah, that was it. And then we got you the Chanel people love.
That's right. What cause is dear to your heart?
Cause is dear to my Israel, the defense of Israel.
What is #1 on your bucket list?
Number one on my bucket list. Well, I hate to say this. It was to go to an Oakland Raiders game, but now that I'm boycotting the NFL for the rest of my life, I'm not sure anymore. The NFL better clean their act up.
I wanted to give context to that because a lot of you guys have heard that little like 8-second blurb and you're like, is this AI? No. That's the guy that's the deputy director of the FBI when he was writing books and doing a podcast. He was sitting with his wife on a couch with elevator music playing and talking about his random love for Israel and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. People who don't know these things don't know them. That's his wife. Yeah. So there you go. She's the funniest person he knows. She doesn't seem funny. I've met her. She was not funny to me. But spouses are different. My wife makes me laugh. She probably doesn't make other people laugh all the time either. So be it. All I'm saying is we're living in a weird time. It would have been nice to see the guy who we thought was doing podcasts and talking the big game go out there and do the thing. And instead, he's out there attacking a journalist for pointing out like, hey, here's an opportunity to course correct. Your troops are saying you suck. And when you get that message, which does happen, you're supposed to go do something about it as a leader. You have to accept, okay, well, is everybody wrong or am I wrong? And they double down on everybody's wrong. The problem is that you're not just taking fire from the Chris Murphys, from the Senator Schumers, from the Mark Kellys. You're taking fire from inside your own camp because people are really upset that you didn't do the thing that we thought you were going to do. We asked for a U-turn on this highway. And you haven't turned the car, man. You haven't even slowed down. They just promoted people like Shannon Perry, who was promoted by Comey, promoted by Wray, and then promoted by Kash Patel. She's in the top 4 people for authority in the entire FBI. It's just another like random name of people. Like we know who these people are. You're killing us. The fire's coming from on the inside because we want to see you actually do the thing you said. The other side, we can disagree for different reasons. The other side is running these like quote unquote hit pieces because they don't like you. Because you're part of the Trump agenda. I don't like you because you didn't do the Trump agenda, which was already like not strong enough. You're not going to destroy it. You better freaking reform it or it's going to come and kill us. And we're going to see Patel arrested. We're going to see Bongino indicted. All these guys are going to face the same thing that Comey did, except the left does it effectively. And they actually get the judiciary on board. And those guys will actually go to jail. Do they not realize that this is like a fight to the death and they are not fighting like their lives are on the line? That's the thing that blows my mind. That's what's so hard for me to do. So that's where we're going to end for the day. And watching them take shots at Miranda Devine is weird. So follow Miranda Devine. That's a good thing to do. Follow us over on Spotify, KyleSerafinshow.com. Easy way to do it. If you're listening, you want to be able to switch between audio and video. That'd be great. And then also support the channels. We crossed over. We're growing after 16,000. We're just going to keep adding people over on YouTube. That's awesome. Please give us the like. You guys are great about that. Rumble, we were at 38 on the leaderboard for likes yesterday. So you guys did a great job with that too. Keep punching the like button. Subscribe to the channels either place. Somehow we can't get over 30,000 over on Rumble. Go shocking. We're 38th on the leaderboard where people around us have hundreds of thousands of followers, but we can't get there. So anyway, and then same thing on X. Again, this is the program. You guys are seeing the show. This is all, it's just one guy. There's nobody behind the curtain. Me punching little buttons here. Really grateful for you. I've got something for you as well that will make you laugh. Hopefully it made me laugh. This is a song from Ready Guess Not, who makes AI fun about the image conscious and the weak on action Trump administration. And the two worst, I think, have been our DOJ and then also the lovely people over at DHS and Border Barbie. Since both of those topics are in the news, this is our palate cleanse of the day. You'll kind of want to jam out to this. It's actually a pretty good song too.
Supposed to chase down real outlaws, but somehow every headline reads the scrolling TikTok more than leads. Keyboard warriors in a DC suit, posting memes instead of chasing truth. You think they track down crooks and plots, but they're busy counting views and bots. Cause Trump's DOJ was working overtime, trying to make social media shine. Filters, reels, and patriotic plots. Guess it's easier than solving crimes. Yeah, justice took a backseat spot so they could pose for glamour shots. They got ring lights in the evidence room. Every press release drops like a boom. Instagram captions, we're tough on crime, but they only chase clout online. Real cases where away collecting dust while they're perfect that angle of trust. Tell me how a badge turns influence or hot. Guess justice pause so the likes don't stop. 'Cause Trump's DOJ was working overtime trying to make social media shine. Filters, reels, and patriotic plots. Guess it's easier than solving crimes. Yeah, justice took a backseat spot so they could pose for glamour. Maybe someday they'll chase a lead instead of hunting hashtags for speed. But until then, they're striking poses, close-up smiles, powder on the noses. Trump's DOJ kept burning the clock, making content instead of knocking on locks. Caught up in clicks and followers, they sought just to stall so they could post a glamour shot.
It's pretty good, right? I'll let it play out. Nice. So there you go. It's made by Ready Guess Not over on X. A couple of songs also responsible for the Kash Booty Call song. So if you guys like that, that's more of it. It's AI slop, I guess, but it's still pretty freaking catchy, which kind of makes me sad that AI is taking over other jobs. All right. That's it for today's program. Thank you for watching. If you're sticking around on Rumble, we'll drop you in. You guys can catch the late and ongoing Steve Friends show. And God bless you. Look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.